It began with a flicker, a fleeting disturbance in the instruments aboard the Solar Horizon spacecraft. At first, it was dismissed as background noise, the sort of anomaly that is common in the vast and unpredictable void of space. Cosmic debris, scattered light, and dust storms frequently confuse even the most advanced detectors. But this particular event did not fade. Within days, a new image surfaced, not from a billion-dollar observatory or an advanced space-based telescope, but from the backyard of an Australian amateur astronomer. Michael Mattiotto, a comet enthusiast with years of experience capturing celestial phenomena, recorded a sight so spectacular that it would soon capture the attention of NASA and other space agencies around the world. What Mattiotto observed was no ordinary comet. Through his modest telescope, he caught sight of a glowing mass with a tail so immense it stretched across the sky, spanning a distance equivalent to 5 full moons placed side by side. The sheer size and brilliance of the object marked it as something entirely different from familiar comets or asteroids. At first, some considered it a larger-than-usual interstellar visitor, comparable to objects like Oumuamua or 2I Borisov. Yet the longer it was observed, the clearer it became that this object was something else entirely, larger, brighter, and infinitely more enigmatic. Soon, comparisons to 3I Atlas, another interstellar body, were eclipsed as scientists realized that a new contender had entered our solar system, one that dwarfed 3I Atlas not only in physical size, but in the questions it posed. The new arrival was officially designated C/2025 R2 Swan, but its name did little to clarify its mysteries. Unlike known comets, it did not behave according to the expectations of astronomy. It was not icy fragments breaking apart under solar radiation, nor was it tumbling chaotically like an asteroid. Instead, the object seemed to pulse. Its light brightened and dimmed in regular intervals, giving off structured patterns of energy that suggested deliberate timing. More unsettling still, the pulses appeared to follow a schedule, as if the object were governed not by physics alone, but by programming. The James Webb Space Telescope was directed to investigate further, and what it discovered unsettled the scientific community even more. Spectral analysis suggested that this was not a natural body at all. Instead of water ice, dust, and rock, Webb detected the spectral fingerprint of nickel-cobalt alloys, materials never before observed in a naturally occurring celestial object, but often associated with advanced engineering. Additional scans revealed tightly controlled plasma emissions, released in pulses rather than random flares, resembling the exhaust of a propulsion system rather than the outgassing of ice. The great luminous tail that trailed behind Swan R2 was not vaporized ice, it was exhaust. Astronomers slowly began to grasp the enormity of what they were observing. Swan R2 was not behaving like a comet, nor even like any interstellar object humanity had cataloged before. Its behavior suggested something different, something engineered. The James Webb Space Telescope, with its unrivaled instruments, provided the most troubling clues. Spectral data hinted at a core releasing more than 10,000 gigawatts every second, a scale of energy so immense it bordered on the incomprehensible. For comparison, the entire global electrical consumption of humanity in 1 year would not amount to even a fraction of that output. The only natural parallels were phenomena of cosmic violence, such as neutron star collisions or the brief flash of merging black holes. Yet here was a solitary object drifting with quiet precision into our solar system, producing a power source that should not exist in any natural context. For many within the scientific community, the implications were unavoidable. Swan R2 was not merely a natural wanderer from deep space. It was powered, guided, and quite possibly constructed. What had begun as speculation quickly solidified into a terrifying new consensus. Humanity was not observing a comet, but a machine. As the object advanced toward the inner solar system, its trajectory revealed yet another disturbing mystery. Careful calculations demonstrated that its orbital path was not random at all. Instead, it had been tuned with uncanny precision to intersect with the course of 3I Atlas, another interstellar visitor detected years earlier. By October 2025, SWAN R2 and 3I Atlas would converge within a mere 50 million kilometers of one another, a distance vast by human standards, but cosmically speaking, impossibly close. The odds of two objects arriving from opposite directions of interstellar space meeting near the Sun at almost the same moment were so small as to be dismissed outright as impossible chance. Nature does not choreograph such alignments. The timing, the geometry, and the scale pointed to something entirely different.
This realization birthed theories that bordered on the surreal. SWAN R2 did not appear to be a lone traveler. It seemed to be on an intercept course, its actions deliberate. Was it approaching 3I Atlas to retrieve it, to destroy it, or to rendezvous in some form of cosmic handshake? Was 3I Atlas itself another machine, one whose purpose we had yet to decipher? More and more, astronomers began speaking not of coincidence, but of orchestration, as though these two enigmatic bodies were parts of a larger plan, written across spans of time far beyond our comprehension. The implications grew darker still. If SWAN R2 and 3I Atlas were not independent, but instead linked, then they might be components of a greater network, a system spread across interstellar distances, operating according to cycles so vast they rendered human history insignificant. In that interpretation, the Sun was not merely an obstacle or a source of gravity along their journey. It was a focal point, a destination, or perhaps a kind of gate. And their synchronized arrival suggested they were responding to something. Perhaps it was humanity's signals, our radio and television waves leaking into space for over a century. Perhaps it was the probes we had sent outward. Or perhaps it had nothing to do with us at all. Perhaps these machines were responding to a cycle built into their programming, one that is played out every 22,000 years without fail. It was that orbital period, 22,554 years, that sparked new speculation among archaeologists, historians, and fringe theorists alike. Figures such as Graham Hancock pointed out that this timescale coincided almost exactly with the end of the last ice age, a period marked by rapid climate change and the sudden appearance of humanity's first great monuments. Around 10,000 BCE, structures such as Göbekli Tepe in modern-day Turkey were built with astonishing precision, aligning with constellations and solar cycles in ways that continue to baffle archaeologists. The Great Pyramid of Giza, thousands of years younger, preserved alignments with Orion's belt and the ecliptic plane. Were these ancient builders simply worshipping the heavens, or had they seen something? If SWAN R2 had last passed through the inner solar system at the end of the Ice Age, could it have inspired myths of gods descending from the sky, myths later recorded in every culture as visitations from divine or celestial beings? The possibility that these gods were in fact misunderstood encounters with an object like SWAN R2 transformed ancient mythology into something more chilling, not invention, but memory. As speculation took root in the public sphere, the response from global institutions became increasingly strange. NASA quietly removed spectral data from its servers, files that independent researchers had been analyzing only days earlier. The European Space Agency issued a vague press release labeling SWAN R2 an unusual but explainable cometary object. China's National Astronomical Observatory announced its instruments were under maintenance, a suspiciously convenient timing that coincided with rising public interest. These statements taken together suggested not transparency, but a coordinated effort to minimize public alarm. Leaked reports only added fuel to the fire. Insiders claim that intelligence agencies within the so-called Five Eyes Alliance, the United States, United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, had circulated a classified memo describing technological signatures inconsistent with natural origin. The memo allegedly cited symmetrical structures detected beneath Swan R2's coma, thrust-like emissions that appear to be course corrections, and time-variable pulses indicating intentional maneuvering. The object, in other words, had been recognized at the highest levels not as a comet, but as a technological artifact. Meanwhile, governments began to take subtle but unmistakable actions. NASA quietly reoriented Voyager 1's antenna, angling it slightly toward the path of Swan R2. The decision was never announced publicly, but the data was visible to those tracking Voyager's mission logs. Why was humanity's most distant probe suddenly being pointed back toward an object inside the solar system? What did NASA expect to hear or to transmit? And at the same time, SETI's radio telescopes began reporting unusual detections. Buried within the plasma tail of Swan R2 were low-frequency signals. Initially dismissed as noise caused by magnetospheric interactions, closer analysis revealed them to be anything but random. The signals followed a precise mathematical sequence. They pulsed in intervals corresponding to the Fibonacci sequence, a ratio that underlies the spiral arms of galaxies, the shells of mollusks, and even the structure of human DNA. To find such a pattern in a signal from deep space was to find the unmistakable fingerprint of intelligence.
The pulses did more than repeat. They evolved. Over days, the intervals began to shorten. The countdown metaphor soon became impossible to ignore. Swan R2 was not merely broadcasting. It was accelerating towards something, preparing for an event. For the first time in history, humanity confronted the possibility that an object inside our solar system was not only non-natural, but communicating. The realization spread through the scientific community with both awe and dread. If these were messages, who were they for? Were they addressed to us, to I3 Atlas, or to something else entirely? And what would happen when the countdown reached zero? Military movements soon followed, and they were anything but subtle. The United States quietly altered the orbits of several classified surveillance satellites, shifting them into positions that offered a clear advantage of the ecliptic plane, the very path along which Swan R2 was advancing. These satellites, designed for monitoring both terrestrial and extraterrestrial activity, are rarely moved without cause. Their sudden repositioning spoke volumes about the seriousness with which American defense agencies were treating the object. To outside observers, it looked less like scientific curiosity and more like preparation for a potential threat. Russia, meanwhile, acted in its own fashion. In a move that caught international analysts off guard, an unannounced launch was carried out from the Baikonur Cosmodrome. The rocket carried a classified payload, its declared mission never publicly disclosed. But its trajectory, aligned suspiciously close to the ecliptic, hinted at a connection to Swan R2. Speculation spread rapidly. Was Russia attempting to deploy a probe, a weapon, or some form of sensor platform? Whatever it was, it had bypassed the usual months of international notice and transparency. The launch was rushed, abrupt, and cloaked in silence. China, for its part, began orchestrating a maneuver that seemed equally deliberate. A constellation of satellites shifted their orbits into what observers described as a net-like formation across the northern hemisphere. This was no random adjustment. The satellites moved in unison, as though part of a coordinated defense grid. Analysts suggested the pattern could be designed to intercept or triangulate signals, or perhaps even to shield sensitive regions from high-frequency emissions. Whatever the purpose, the maneuver made one thing clear. China, too, regarded Swan R2 not as a comet, but something that could not be ignored. According to leaked documents whispered through defense circles, multiple governments had reached a sobering consensus. Swan R2 was a potential autonomous threat. Not necessarily a weapon in the traditional sense, but a machine of such scale and power that its mere presence could trigger chain reactions on a cosmic level. To some military theorists, it resembled a relay station, a hub designed to transmit or redirect signals across interstellar distances. Others speculated it could function as a gravitational switch, exploiting the sun's immense field to alter trajectories or open pathways we cannot yet imagine. The most unsettling hypothesis of all was that it was a key, an engineered artifact designed to interact with the sun's magnetic folds, perhaps unlocking something hidden within the star itself.
Nations attempted to pierce the mystery directly. Reports circulated of reconnaissance craft hastily launched toward Swan R2, small probes intended to gather close-range data. Yet every attempt failed. Some craft burned up in the intensity of solar radiation before they ever reached the object. Others veered off course, their trajectories subtly disrupted by forces engineers could not account for. It was as if Swan R2 was surrounded by a protective envelope, an invisible barrier that made any close approach impossible. Yet humanity still had its greatest eyes in the sky. The James Webb Space Telescope, unshielded from political directives and still dedicated to observation, continued to watch from afar. What it revealed only deepened the sense of awe and fear. Beneath the brilliant halo of gases and energy surrounding Swan R2, Webb's instruments detected unmistakable signs of deliberate architecture. Patterns of radial geometry emerged, precise and symmetrical. Fractal scaling, repeating on different levels of magnification, echoed the complexity of engineered design. Concentric arcs, arranged with the same golden ratio that defined the pulses of its signal, shimmered beneath the coma. This was not random. This was construction. Spectrometry added more layers to the enigma. The surface appeared to be composed of layered metals, alloys of unusual density reinforced as though designed to endure unimaginable stresses. Some readings hinted at insulated chambers within, structures capable of regulating internal temperatures against the extremes of interstellar travel. More shocking still, Webb detected periodic dips and reflected light that suggested hollowness, vast open voids inside the object, not solid rock, but empty space. These cavities could serve as energy conduits, storage compartments, or something even stranger. Whatever its purpose, Swan R2 was not a natural mass of stone and ice. It was engineered.
Its sheer scale and sophistication implied more than survival. It may have been built to harvest energy from stars, drawing sustenance from stellar winds and radiation. Or perhaps it was designed to contain something, an engine, an artifact, or even a cargo whose nature remains beyond human comprehension. The idea that such a thing was drifting into our solar system shook the very foundation of astronomy. It meant we were not merely watching a visitor from the stars, we were witnessing a piece of technology from elsewhere, a machine built with an intent we could not yet grasp. The climax of its passage through the inner solar system came in October 2025. By then, its trajectory carried it directly behind the Sun, where its visibility from Earth-based observatories was blocked. Astronomers, confident in their orbital predictions, expected Swan R2 to emerge within days on the far side. This was routine. Comets and asteroids vanish behind the Sun all the time, only to reappear on schedule. But Swan R2 defied expectations. Days passed, then nearly a week with no re-emergence. Telescopes scoured the skies in vain. Probes that should have picked up even the faintest signals found nothing. Even solar observatories built to detect subtle variations in solar wind and plasma streams recorded no trace. To scientists watching with mounting dread, it was as if Swan R2 had simply ceased to exist. And yet, no one truly believed it was gone. The silence did not feel like disappearance, it felt like concealment. When Swan R2 finally returned to detection, its reappearance only deepened the mystery. It did not emerge where orbital mechanics predicted. Instead, it surfaced near the Sun's southern pole, an area of profound complexity, where the solar magnetic field lines twist and fold back upon themselves in looping arcs, resembling the endless folds of a Mobius strip. This region of the Sun is poorly understood, a place where plasma flows can generate unpredictable magnetic storms, and some theorists have long suggested it may harbor hidden gateways to phenomena we cannot yet define. The idea that such a thing was reappearing here was startling. To some scientists, it looked like a calculated gravitational slingshot, a maneuver often used by spacecraft to gain speed or alter trajectory using the gravity of a celestial body. To others, the event seemed far more deliberate, as if the object had intentionally sought out this unstable solar environment for a purpose beyond human comprehension. Then came the most extraordinary event of all. On October 17th, at precisely 3:03 UTC, space weather monitors detected a sudden and unprecedented gamma-ray burst. Typically, such bursts are detected from billions of light-years away, caused by cataclysmic events like the collapse of massive stars. But this time, the signal originated not from the depths of intergalactic space, but from within our own solar system. The burst lasted less than a second, 7/10 of one heartbeat,
but in that blink of time, it released more energy than our sun produces over the course of 48 hours. What made the burst even more terrifying was its precision. Solar flares and coronal mass ejections scatter energy in chaotic waves across the heliosphere. This gamma-ray flash, by contrast, had a vector, a clear line of emission. When mapped, that vector aligned perfectly with the last known trajectory of Swan R2. As if the object had either absorbed an incomprehensible quantity of energy from the sun and then discharged it like a weapon, or it initiated some form of controlled interaction with the star itself. Either explanation pointed to the same conclusion. What humanity was witnessing was not passive celestial mechanics, but manipulation. When Swan R2 resumed its transmission shortly after the event, astronomers were shocked to find its signal had changed. Where before it had emitted simple pulses, it now radiated spiral waveforms across a spectrum of frequencies. When analysts subjected these waveforms to Fourier analysis, the results were chilling. Several harmonics closely mirrored the rotational frequencies of Earth's own tectonic plates. One signal matched the Schumann resonance, the naturally occurring electromagnetic frequency generated between the Earth's surface and the ionosphere, long believed by some to influence human brain activity and biological rhythms. Another matched pulse patterns once used by the Voyager spacecraft when they first began transmitting telemetry back to Earth decades earlier. It was as if Swan R2 had shifted its communication to mimic the very rhythms of our planet, or worse, to address Voyager itself. The next revelation seemed impossible. Voyager 1, humanity's most distant probe, launched in 1977 and now drifting through interstellar space beyond the heliopause, responded. Without any command from Earth, the spacecraft reoriented its high-gain antenna by 2.4 degrees. This small but deliberate adjustment pointed directly toward the region of space where Swan R2 had last been observed. Voyager's onboard systems are primitive by modern standards. Its last software update occurred decades ago, and it has no artificial intelligence, no reactive programming that would allow autonomous decisions of this magnitude. Yet somehow it had turned, as though acknowledging a signal.
To mission engineers, this was baffling. To theorists, it was terrifying. Some suggested that Swan R2 had identified Voyager as a relic of intelligent life, perhaps recognizing its famous golden record as a message in a bottle cast into the cosmic ocean. Others suggested something even more unsettling, that Voyager had been pinged, compelled to respond, inadvertently confirming humanity's existence to something listening on the other side. If so, then for the first time in history, Earth had not merely broadcast into the dark, it had answered back. As Swan R2 continued its outward drift, it left behind more mysteries. The Galileo orbiter, still providing valuable data on Jupiter and its moons, recorded an anomaly over Europa. For several hours, the icy moon fell under a strange eclipse-like shadow. At first, astronomers thought it might be a miscalculation of Jupiter's position or the movement of another moon. But the phenomenon did not match natural orbital mechanics. The shadow lingered longer than it should have, and its movement contradicted expected patterns. Spectral analysis showed it was not a simple absence of light, but an interference pattern, the kind generated when high energy waves overlap. It appeared as though Swan R2 were projecting something, bending light itself, perhaps scanning Europa's frozen surface or activating something hidden beneath its crust. The James Webb Space Telescope, relentlessly trained on the object, despite official attempts to downplay its significance, provided the next revelation. During a fleeting observational window, Webb's instruments caught sight of something inside the luminous coma surrounding Swan R2. For less than half a second, a smooth, metallic sphere became visible. Perfectly round, reflective, and radiating at a stable temperature inconsistent with any natural process, it seemed to form the hidden heart of the object. Most disturbing was a central void within the sphere, a dark iris-like aperture encircled by a symmetrical ridge. The structure resembled an eye, an artificial sensor staring outward into space. The discovery sparked fierce debate.
Was this a form of camera or receiver designed to study its surroundings, or was it something far more alien, perhaps even biological in origin, encased within a machine? Experts in biomimicry noted its resemblance to deep-sea organisms on Earth that evolved to see in absolute darkness. The possibility that it was designed to observe across wavelengths beyond human comprehension and that it may have been watching us could not be ignored. Analysis of its new transmissions added further weight to the theory that Swan R2 had been listening to humanity for a very long time. Several of its harmonics matched frequencies once used in Earth's earliest communication satellites during the Cold War. More shockingly, one of the signals corresponded exactly to the frequency of the famous WOW signal detected in 1977, long considered one of the most intriguing possible signs of extraterrestrial intelligence. If Swan R2 was echoing these frequencies, then it suggested one of two possibilities. Either it had been monitoring us for decades and was now speaking back in our own electromagnetic accent, or it had stored our earliest transmissions and was replaying them for reasons unknown. To some, this meant it had waited until our civilization was advanced enough to decode its responses. To others, it meant that it had always been listening and was now only revealing what it had known all along. A breakthrough finally came when astrophysicists and artificial intelligence researchers pooled their resources. For weeks, Swan R2's transmissions had resisted interpretation, but when the data was fed into deep learning models capable of recognizing patterns across multiple dimensions, something extraordinary began to take shape. The algorithms, designed to sift through apparent noise and reveal hidden order, reconstructed what appeared not to be a schematic of the object itself, but a map, three-dimensional coordinates pointing outward into space.
When Earth's most sensitive radio telescopes were directed toward the coordinates, they detected faint echoes of Swan R2's signal. These echoes were not random static, nor did they align with known planetary systems cataloged in the region. Instead, they bounced back in patterns suggesting reflection or redirection, as though the signals were hitting a hidden surface before returning. No visible star, no exoplanet, no natural object explained this. What researchers mapped instead was consistent with the outline of a vast cloaked structure, a Dyson-like field, an artificial shell designed to mask whatever lay within from detection by outside observers. If confirmed, this would be the first evidence not just of extraterrestrial technology, but of megastructures on a scale so large they could rival entire solar systems. The implications were staggering. Swan R2 may not have been a solitary traveler at all, but rather a node in a network, a scout dispatched to synchronize with others like it. Its apparent coordination with 3i Atlas, its precision manipulation of solar energy, its mimicry of human frequencies, all suggested a deliberate strategy. These objects were not random debris thrown across interstellar space. They were designed to move, to signal, and perhaps to converge at predetermined times. For decades, humanity has projected its presence into the cosmos. Radio broadcasts leaking from Earth, interstellar beacons like the Arecibo message, and the golden records aboard Voyager. We imagined that the silence in return meant no one was listening. But what if silence was not absence, but surveillance? What if every transmission we sent was intercepted, cataloged, and stored by watchers like Swan R2? What if its arrival was not a greeting, but a repositioning, a signal that our messages had been filed and now a new phase was beginning? Its sheer size only reinforced this possibility. Swan R2 was 100 times larger than 3i Atlas, a machine of staggering sophistication whose scale suggested it was never intended to be just a probe. Its geometry, energy output, and behavior marked it not as a drifting anomaly, but as technology of purpose. Whether messenger, beacon, or sentinel, it was built with intent, and its intent now included us. If that is true, then we may not be preparing for contact in the future. Contact may have already happened, only in ways we did not recognize. Swan R2's sudden arrival is not just an astronomical curiosity. It may be the continuation of a story far older than humanity itself. Its presence in our solar system forces us to ask the most unsettling question of all. If Swan R2 is merely a scout, then what sent it? And how long have they been watching?